a slice of dry, white bread, a lukewarm glass of water without ice. That was all that was placed in front of Aurora Kane, a woman whose single nod could shake an entire industry. The business-class cabin of Flight MS-217 unfolded like an opulent stage. Smooth cream leather seats, golden light spilling softly over crystal glasses, the aroma of roasted lamb mingling with Bordeaux red wine. Everything was orchestrated to whisper of class, privilege, and refinement. But in seat 3A, that stage was about to turn into an indictment. Aurora Kane, 40 years old, CEO of Kane Global Freight, sat upright, her face calm as a midnight lake. She was used to the scrutinizing stares in boardrooms full of white men, used to the skeptical nods whenever she spoke, used to proving her presence over and over again, far more than anyone else. Yet tonight, what she was served was bread and water. Morgan Elkins, the chief flight attendant with her blonde hair tied high, set down the tray with cold indifference. No smile, no greeting, just a gesture that felt like tossing leftovers to someone sitting in the wrong place. "This is your meal tonight," Morgan murmured, her tone tinged with disdain. Aurora blinked once. No sharp retort. She simply looked at the tray, then lifted her gaze. Her eyes locked onto Morgan's. Steady, piercing. "This is my dinner." Aurora's voice was low, even, yet the resonance made a few passengers turn their heads. Morgan smirked, half smile, half sneer. "If you don't like it, you can wait until there's something left over." The word leftover landed heavy, like a dagger to the heart of dignity. Murmurs rippled through the cabin. A man in seat 4B, Trent Caldwell, a businessman in a grey suit, lifted his phone, pretending to scroll the news, but his camera was already recording. He glanced at Aurora with a thin smile, eyes glinting as if this was some free entertainment. A few other passengers exchanged looks, some stifled chuckles. No one spoke up. Aurora remained still. She lifted the glass of water, sipped once, then placed it back down. Droplets trickled across the tablecloth, leaving faint streaks like cold scars. Her heart beat slow, steady, like war drums. In the silence, memories returned, being mistaken for a secretary, ideas ignored until repeated in a man's voice. Those memories now fused with the present, the tray of bread, the mocking smile, the disdainful laughter. Morgan walked away with the strut of someone certain her humiliation had landed. What she didn't know was that Aurora's silence was not acceptance. It was a blade being sharpened. Trent leaned toward the passenger beside him, whispering, "She can't be real first class. Doesn't look like it." He tapped upload. A 15-second clip. The bread, the water, Aurora's calm, icy stare. The progress bar ticked. 20%, 50%, 100. The clip left the cabin, racing into the world at the speed of light. Aurora knew. Without looking, she knew. She heard the whispers, saw the red glow of recording lights reflected in the glass. But she didn't snatch the phone, didn't argue, didn't justify. Instead, she broke the bread in half, placed it neatly back on the tray, and folded her hands. A small gesture, yet the entire cabin noticed. In that moment, the air shifted. No longer a quiet dinner, but attention suspended in the air. Passengers whispered. Some frowned in unease. Others smiled in satisfaction. But all eyes were drawn to seat 3A, where a black woman was being humiliated in plain sight, yet sat unmoved, a monument of composure. Aurora lifted her gaze toward Morgan, who was now pouring wine for Trent. For a heartbeat, their eyes met. Morgan faltered, then quickly masked it with a forced smile. Inside, however, unease stirred. Why did this woman not react? Why did her silence feel so unsettling? Trent, too, sipped his wine with a forced grin. Aurora's gaze cut through him, an unspoken verdict. In that instant, it was he, not she, who felt exposed under the microscope. The engine still hummed, the light still glowed golden, the wine still shimmered red in crystal glasses. Yet on the small silver tray before Aurora, a storm had begun to brew. A slice of bread, a glass of water, an insult, and the spark of a reckoning, waiting for its moment to erupt. The 15-second clip had already left the airplane cabin, racing across invisible waves, flashing onto the phones of hundreds of thousands of people within minutes. The caption on TikTok was cold and cutting. First class, only if you look the part. Aurora Kane still sat in seat 3A, her hands folded, but the world outside had erupted. In a small cafe in New York, a student set his latte down, eyes blazing at the screen. Unbelievable. Bread and water in first class. On a subway in Chicago, a young woman laughed bitterly. This is 2025, not 1955. Comments, keystrokes, and pounding hearts stacked on top of each other into a tidal wave of outrage. Yet on board, no one grasped the scale of it. Passengers whispered, some frowned, others smirked. Trent Caldwell in seat 4B kept glancing at his phone as notifications poured in. Thousands of likes, tens of thousands of shares. He chuckled, smug. It's viral. To him, Aurora was nothing but entertainment. He had no idea he had just lit the fuse of a global storm. Aurora, however, knew the power of silence. Hers was not weakness, but preparation. Her gaze drifted to the window, catching her own reflection. A woman with cropped hair, a fitted suit, a Cartier watch gleaming at her wrist. To an outsider, she was just another passenger abandoned with a meager tray. But look closer, and there was the face of a strategist calculating every move. In the row behind, a middle-aged couple whispered, "Did she take the wrong seat?" No. Clearly it's first class. She just doesn't look the part. Aurora heard every word. Each syllable landed like a pebble against her chest, not enough to shake her, but enough to harden her resolve. Morgan Elkins returned down the aisle, tray of wine glasses balanced on her hand, a polished smile plastered on her face. But when her eyes met Aurora's, a chill ran through her. That gaze did not shout, did not flare with anger. It was still, deep as an abyss, enough to make even the arrogant falter. Morgan cleared her throat, quickened her pace, convincing herself. She's nobody, just a difficult passenger. Aurora's silence spread. It seeped through the cabin like invisible gravity. The faint clink of knife against porcelain rang sharp as nails on steel. Murmured conversations turned into tense whispers. Phones rose discreetly, filming seconds at a time before heads ducked back down to screens. Everyone wanted to be a witness, not to intervene, but to watch how the scene would unfold. And then, just as Morgan thought she had left Aurora behind, a sound pierced the air, soft yet shattering. Ding. The call button had been pressed. Every eye in the cabin shifted toward seat 3A. Aurora sat upright, shoulders relaxed, her finger just lifting from the button, her expression calm, but in her eyes a flash of steel. Morgan froze. For a fleeting moment, her heart skipped. But with the reflex of someone convinced she held authority, she adjusted her smile and strode forward. Yes? Her voice was sharp, trying to drown out a trace of nerves. Aurora lifted her gaze, steady and unflinching. I'd like to know why the passenger next to me was served roasted lamb and wine, while I was given bread and water. The air thinned. Whispers stopped. Every phone tilted higher, recording. Morgan swallowed hard. Her eyes darted around, searching for escape. Perhaps a catering mistake. It happens occasionally. Aurora tilted her head, voice smooth, but each word honed like a blade. So your decision was to place bread and water in front of me, without a word of explanation? Morgan stiffened. Behind her, Trent Caldwell let out a scoff, deliberately loud. Some people just don't know how to be satisfied, always complaining. Aurora turned her eyes on him. No words, no expression, just a single look. But that look made Trent choke, his smile freezing, the piece of meat in his mouth suddenly heavy, impossible to swallow. Morgan coughed, took a step back, then hurried out. I'll see what can be arranged. Aurora gave a small nod. Do that. Morgan turned, unsettled. For the first time on this flight, she felt her uniform tighten, suffocating. Behind her, the rapid clicking of keyboards filled the air. The exchange had already become a storm online. Aurora leaned back, eyes half closed, but her mind was wide awake. She knew, from this moment on, the storm was no longer outside. It had officially descended into business class. Morgan returned only minutes later, the silver tray trembling slightly in her hands. This time, it was no longer bread and water. On the tray was golden roasted lamb, cheesy potatoes, and a glass of Bordeaux glowing deep red, the very meal every other passenger had been served from the start. She set it down before Aurora, her voice strained. This is your proper meal. Aurora glanced at the tray, her gaze calm. A beat of silence, then she gently pushed it back. Keep it. Time froze. A passenger dropped a silver spoon, the clang echoing through the cabin. Trent Caldwell burst out with a mocking laugh. See? Even when given the good stuff, she still complains. But no one laughed with him. Instead, phones were raised higher. A new video was captured of a black woman refusing wine and lamb. Not because she was full, but because the insult was already carved in stone. Aurora leaned back, her eyes cold as steel, her voice cutting clear. I have eaten bread and drunk water before, but that was when I chose to fast, not when I paid to sit here. Her words tore the silence apart. Some passengers gaped. A man in the row behind whispered, "God, she's right." And Trent's phone, which he had aimed to ridicule, had recorded a line that within hours would become iconic, turned into hashtags, memes, and the rallying cry of a global storm. On the ground, while the plane still soared over the ocean, the first clip had already passed 300,000 views. After the refusal of Lam, the wave surged faster. Twitter exploded. "Bread and water in business class. This is 2025, not 1955. She didn't need to shout. Her silence was the loudest scream. Instagram flooded with screenshots of Aurora sitting tall, eyes icy, the tray of bread before her. Across the images, words were added. Dignity is not optional. A travel blogger posted, "I've flown this route many times. The service was always different depending on who you looked like." His post hit 50,000 likes in just 1 hour. On the plane, Aurora remained silent. Morgan stood at the end of the aisle, her hand clenching the empty tray, her heart pounding. She couldn't understand why a single passenger unsettled the entire cabin. Trent tried to laugh it off, forcing another jab. Maybe she just wants to be famous. But this time, no one joined him. An elderly couple shot him a look of disgust. A young man whispered to his friend, "Doesn't he feel ashamed?" Aurora heard everything. She tilted her head slightly, her eyes sweeping across the cabin like a blade. One by one, faces dropped, eyes fell. Her silence, her composure, made them feel bare. In New York, a TV station broke into programming. A viral video shows a black passenger in business class served only bread and water, while others received full meals. In London, a former Olympic champion tweeted, "This is not about food. This is about being reminded that you don't belong, even when you've paid to be there." In Los Angeles, a famous singer shared the clip with the caption, "I feel this in my bones. Her silence is the scream." Hashtags, hashed bread and water and hat flying. While Black shot to #1 worldwide. Back in seat 3A, Aurora unlocked her phone. The screen lit up in the dim cabin. An encrypted message appeared. "Protocol ready, awaiting command." She tapped once, then locked the screen. No one around her knew that one small gesture had triggered a network of allies spread across New York, London, and Singapore. Men and women in black suits would rise the moment they saw the signal. Morgan lingered behind the curtain, sweat beading on her brow. She had no idea that the woman she had dismissed, the one she had served bread and water, was the very person holding billion-dollar freight contracts that underpinned the airline's future. Aurora leaned back, her eyes closing softly, a strange peace settling in her chest. She knew the reckoning had not yet come. But when it did, it would not be just Morgan, not just Trent. An entire empire would pay the price. At the top floor of Meridian Sky's headquarters in New York, the LED screens glowed red like sirens. Stock charts plunged. Public sentiment graphs blazed like fire. News flashed across dozens of channels at once. Black passenger served bread and water in business class. Damon Ricks, the 56-year-old CEO, slammed the table, the sound rattling a glass of water. He roared, "How many views?" The head of communications spoke with a trembling voice. Over 3 million in 4 hours, sir. The hashtag #breadandwater is #1 worldwide on Twitter. And, she hesitated, we discovered that passenger is Aurora Kane. The room froze. A few executives gaped. Rix turned pale. That name alone could chill anyone in the aviation industry. Aurora Kane, CEO of Kane Global Freight, a company that controls logistics networks spanning 3 continents. With a single signature, she could decide which airline handled billion-dollar cargo and which would suffocate in debt. "Dear God," the COO whispered, "she is the key partner in our contract with Synapse Biosystems. If Aurora pulls out, our multi-billion-dollar deal with them evaporates." Damon Rix bellowed, as if trying to drive away the fear gnawing at him. "Call the lead flight attendant immediately! Call the captain! I want an apology at once!" But it was already too late. In business class, Aurora opened her eyes. Messages poured across her screen. "Aurora, national television is covering this. The clip has passed 5 million views. Synapse is calling an emergency session." She did not rush to reply. Her finger touched the glass of water on the table, so lightly that the drop sliding down its surface seemed to slow time itself. In her mind, memories surfaced. Hotel guards blocking her path, dismissive looks in boardrooms. Every scar had forged the steel in her gaze. Morgan Elkins stood behind the curtain, her heart pounding. She looked at Aurora, unable to understand how one woman could create such a heavy atmosphere. Every eye in the cabin turned toward seat 3A. They no longer saw Aurora as an anonymous passenger. They saw her as the center of the storm, the one who held the fate of the flight in her hands. Aurora slowly rose. Some nearby passengers held their breath. Even the roar of engines outside seemed swallowed by the silence in the cabin. She said nothing, simply walked toward the restroom, yet her calm composure felt like a silent verdict. Trent Caldwell glanced after her, trying to appear casual, but sweat trickled at his temples. A vague thought flared in his mind. Something is wrong. Very wrong. In London, inside the Synapse Biosystems boardroom, CEO Anika Sharma, 48, sat before a screen replaying the clip of Aurora rejecting the tray of lamb. Her voice was sharp. "That is Aurora Kane, the woman who just signed to distribute our biotech products across Europe. If she withdraws, the entire project collapses." A young executive added nervously. "And she was humiliated on the very airline we just partnered with." Sharma closed her eyes. When she opened them again, her gaze was like a blade. "Prepare an exit strategy. I will not risk this company's reputation with a partner that dares to humiliate Aurora." Back in the skies, Aurora returned to her seat, her face calm. Her phone buzzed with a new message. "Protocol Alpha activated. With a single nod from you, the $2.4 billion transport contract with Meridian Skies will be frozen immediately." Aurora pressed her lips together. No wasted movement, no heavy breath. But inside, a tidal wave was rising. Morgan stepped closer, her voice now a whisper. "I'm sorry. Is there anything I can do to make it right?" Aurora looked up. Just one glance. No words, but the look alone made Morgan tremble, remorse seeping into her like poison. Aurora gave a slight nod, not to Morgan, but to herself. The decision was made. From that dry piece of bread, an earthquake would begin. In New York, Damon Ricks sank into his chair, staring at the flashing news ticker. Aurora Kane humiliated on flight MS-217. He knew all too well. A petty act by a flight attendant had become a blade driven straight into the company's heart. In seat 3A, Aurora closed her eyes. The storm had been unleashed, and this time it would consume the entire sky. Just a few hours later, while the plane had yet to land, the storm outside had already swallowed the world. On Twitter, the hashtag #breadandwater reached 5 million mentions. Words poured down like a tempest. One slice of bread, and the entire airline industry exposed. She stayed silent, but that silence was louder than any accusation. On Instagram, an image spread like whittle of Aurora sitting upright, her hands folded before the pitiful meal. People added the caption, "Dignity isn't optional." A post from a famous singer surpassed 1 million likes in just 2 hours. In business class, Aurora opened her eyes, her gaze no longer directed only at Morgan or Trent. She looked through the metal walls, as if staring directly at the corporation beyond. Her phone buzzed. A message appeared. "Aurora, CNN is broadcasting live. They're calling it #Mealgate." Another followed. "Meridian Skies, stock down 7% in pre-market trading. We're waiting for your signal." Aurora brushed her finger across the screen, but did not respond. She allowed silence to linger, like a fuse left unlit. In seat 4B, Trent Caldwell still held his phone, but the smugness had curdled into unease. He saw the comments shift beneath his video. This man is laughing at someone's humiliation. Who is he? Find him and cancel him. A chill crept through him. Once a man who thought he was recording a joke, he had become the second villain after Morgan. He swallowed hard, stealing a glance at Aurora, but she did not bother to look back. Morgan, on the other hand, felt every step weigh like stone. Passengers watched her, not with respect, but with anger. A middle-aged woman whispered loudly enough for her to hear. She should be fired on the spot. Morgan's hands trembled. Every training module, every lesson in professional smiles collapsed. In its place, a single icy thought echoed. Have I just destroyed my own career? As for Aurora, she knew she was sitting on a volcano, and she alone held the key to ignite it. Memories surfaced in her mind. At 28, she once walked into a luxury hotel to sign a contract. The staff mistook her for housekeeping. She stayed silent, let them dig their own hole, then revealed who she was. Today was the same. No shouting, no chaos. Only letting the truth reveal itself. And when she chose to speak, it would strike like a blade. In New York, the Meridian Skies boardroom had turned into a battlefield. CEO Damon Ricks barked, "We have to control the narrative, now!" But the narrative was no longer theirs. It belonged to Aurora, the woman in seat 3A, who had yet to utter a single public word, yet had the whole world leaning in to listen. The CFO's voice was clipped. "If Aurora freezes the contract with Synapse Biosystems, we lose at least $2.4 billion. and that's not counting the domino effect from other partners. The room fell silent. Everyone understood. One slice of bread could erase an empire. Back in business class, Aurora set her phone on the table. The screen glowed with a simple line. Ready to initiate Alpha. Confirm? She glanced at it, drew a deep breath, her finger hovered and stopped. She let the question hang. Not from hesitation, but because she knew the killing blow had to be timed to perfection. Passengers nearby whispered, "Who is she? Why does it look like she's in control of all this? She doesn't look like someone humiliated. She looks like someone judging us." Morgan caught her gaze once more, only for an instant, but it stripped her bare, made every mask feel meaningless. Aurora smiled faintly, not for Morgan, not for Trent, but for herself. Because she knew, when the plane landed, it would not be just a flight attendant who fell. An entire industry would bow its head. On CNN, the anchor ended the live report with a line that left viewers hushed. "This isn't about a meal. This is about who deserves respect. And when the person you dismiss holds billion-dollar contracts, that dismissal is not just a moral failure, it is corporate suicide." Aurora leaned back in her seat. Outside the window, the night sky drifted calm. But within her, she knew. This was only the stillness before the quake. And when it came, no one would escape. The steady hum of the Boeing's engines throbbed outside its steel frame like the heartbeat of a giant beast. But inside the business class cabin, the heart truly deciding the fate of the airline industry was not the engines, but Aurora Kane. She sat silently in seat 3A, her phone on the table, the screen lighting up once again. The words were clear. "Alpha Protocol. Ready. Confirm?" Aurora placed her fingertip on the screen. A moment of hesitation, not from fear, but from knowing that pressing this button meant there would be no turning back. At Meridian Sky's headquarters in New York, the communications director was still desperately trying to calm the press. Yet internal messages pelted down like hailstones. Partners demand urgent clarification. Several logistics firms have suspended shipments. Stock down 11%. CEO Damon Ricks roared, "Don't let her move. We have to do something." The CFO locked eyes with him. "We're no longer in control. Aurora Kane is." Aurora drew a deep breath, her eyelids closing. She remembered 15 years earlier when an investor flatly rejected her business plan, claiming a black woman could never manage a global supply chain. She had stayed silent that day, offering no argument, only lowering her head and walking out. The next day, that investor's firm was pushed out of the market because of a partnership decision Aurora had orchestrated behind the scenes. Silence was a weapon, and when it struck, it was always as precise as a blade. Aurora opened her eyes. She pressed confirm. In London, inside Synapse Biosystems boardroom, a notification appeared on the screen. Kane Global Freight, transport contract with Meridian Skies. Frozen. The project director's voice trembled. "Without Aurora, we cannot launch our new product. They've failed." CEO Anika Sharma stared at the screen, then gave a single nod. "Then let them face the consequences. I will call Aurora directly." In the aircraft cabin, Aurora felt her phone vibrate. A video call flashed from Synapse. She did not answer immediately. Instead, She lifted her glass of water, sipping slowly. Passengers around her watched, as if witnessing a ritual. Morgan Elkins, the chief flight attendant, stood a few steps away, her heart racing wildly. She did not know exactly what was happening, but in Aurora's eyes she understood. She had provoked the wrong person. Aurora accepted the call, brought the phone to her ear, and spoke only 2 words. "It's done." That was all. But on the other end, it meant billions erased, a transcontinental contract dissolved. In New York, Damon Ricks received the report and collapsed into his chair. His face turned pale. They just pulled the contract. No one in the room dared to speak. They all knew. This decision did not just destroy an agreement. It was a blow to the soul of the corporation. Meanwhile, on social media, the storm turned into a tsunami. CNN broke the story live. Breaking news: Aurora Kane, CEO of Kane Global Freight, has frozen a $2.4 billion transport contract with Meridian Skies after being subjected to discrimination on Flight 216. Images of Aurora sitting upright, with nothing but bread and water before her, flooded screens everywhere. The anchor concluded, "This is no longer a service scandal. This is a systemic collapse." Morgan stepped closer to Aurora, her voice trembling. "Madam, I didn't know." Aurora turned, her eyes blazing under the golden cabin lights. She did not shout, did not scold. Only one sentence, low and clear. "Yes, you didn't know, and that is the problem." Morgan bowed her head, feeling the world collapse around her. Aurora sat back in her seat, her phone lighting up with new notifications. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, Reuters, all reporting. Market ripple effect. Meridian Skies, stock down 15% in 30 minutes. She closed her eyes. Inside there was no glee, no triumph. Only the cold certainty that justice did not need to scream. It only needed to arrive at the right time, in the right place. Bread and water, the beginning of an earthquake. Fuel. The sky outside remained calm, but the ground had turned into hell. In New York, the electronic boards on Wall Street glowed blood red. Meridian Skies stock plummeted 17%, then 20 billions of dollars erased in less than 2 hours. Investors screamed into their phones, brokers dripped sweat, the trading floor roared like an earthquake. On CNN, a reporter stood in front of the airline's headquarters, her voice urgent. Aurora Kane's decision to freeze the transport contract has triggered a domino effect. Synapse Biosystems, a multi-billion-dollar partner, has officially announced they are reconsidering the deal. Rival companies are already moving in to seize the opportunity. The image of Aurora seated before bread and water replayed endlessly. It was no longer a photo. It had become a global symbol. In Washington, senators convened an emergency meeting. A female senator slammed her hand on the table. This is not an isolated act of discrimination. This is systemic. If a powerful CEO can be humiliated like this, what happens to ordinary people? The Federal Aviation Administration announced a full investigation. The spokesperson's words rang out. "We will review the entire passenger service process. Dignity is not negotiable." In London, Synapse Biosystems CEO Anika Sharma held a press conference, her face like steel. "We cannot partner with an airline facing global accusations of systemic discrimination. Synapse will redirect to another partner unless Meridian Skies undergoes a complete transformation." Her words were the final blade, driving the stock down another 5%. In the business class cabin, Aurora sat tall, as calm as a statue. The murmurs, the clicking phones, the gasps of passengers blended into a chaotic soundtrack. But to her, it was only the sound of distant waves. Morgan Elkins stood pressed against the corner of the cabin, her face pale. Each time Aurora's gaze swept past, she felt stripped bare, her arrogance and blindness exposed. Memories surged through Morgan's mind. The smirks, the selective smiles, the moments she decided who was worthy of kindness. And now, all of it collapsed upon her, crushing her career to dust. Trent Caldwell fared no better. His phone buzzed with relentless fury, the comments cutting like nafinanot. "This is the man who mocked Aurora. Who is he? Cancel him now." Trent wiped sweat from his brow, heart pounding. He had never imagined that a smirk could turn him into an accomplice in a public crime. Aurora lifted her phone. A new message appeared. "BBC, Reuters, NHK, Al Jazeera, all broadcasting. Bread and water at 20 million shares. The EU government has announced an investigation into the entire airline industry. Everyone is waiting for your public response." Aurora leaned back, closed her eyes, and drew in a long breath. In the silence, she remembered her mother's words. "You do not need to shout to be heard. You only need to stand firm, and the world will tilt toward you." Yes, she had stood firm, and now the world tilted her way. In Tokyo, the Minister of Transport declared, "We will open an investigation. Any airline operating in Japan that does not guarantee equal dignity for passengers will face severe penalties." In Paris, activists protested outside Charles de Gaulle Airport, holding signs high, "We belong in first class too." Prejudice is not a service failure, it is a business failure. Aurora slowly opened her eyes, gazing out the window. The night sky remained serene, but inside she knew this was no ordinary storm. This was a flood, a great deluge that would sweep away arrogance and force an entire industry to be reborn. And she, the woman reduced to bread and water, was the epicenter of that rebirth. The wheels screeched against the runway, the sound of metal grinding like a sword striking stone. Flight MS-2117 touched down at Heathrow, but instead of the usual sigh of relief, the entire business class cabin held its breath. Everyone knew this was not the end. This was the beginning of an explosion. Aurora Kane remained seated in 3A, her back straight, hands folded on her lap. Phones buzzed around her like a chaotic chorus, alerts flashing, tweets firing, live streams rolling. One passenger glanced at his screen and whispered just loud enough for the whole cabin to hear, "She's #1 worldwide. The entire world is watching this flight." Morgan Elkins swallowed hard, her palms slick with sweat, her face drained of color. She knew too well that when those cabin doors opened, it would not just be Aurora engulfed by the press. She herself would become the symbol of humiliation and termination. The ding sounded. The cabin door swung open. A flood of light spilled in, and then a scene unlike anything ever witnessed. A sea of cameras, microphones, and flashing lights erupted at the gate like a thunderstorm. "Aurora Kane! Aurora, were you discriminated against on this flight? Are you terminating your contract with Meridian Skies? Is this a blow to the entire airline industry?" The cacophony shattered the silence. Passengers parted like water splitting, clearing a path for Aurora. She rose. Her dark suit framed her form. Her Cartier watch caught the blaze of the flashes. Her face was neither frozen nor triumphant. It was calm, and that calmness made every lens tremble, desperate not to miss a single detail. Trent Caldwell tried to push ahead, hoping to slip out before reporters connected him to the first viral clip. But Aurora's gaze slid toward him. No words, no gestures, just a look. Trent froze instantly, lowering his head as if standing before a judge. Morgan stepped forward, voice trembling. "Aurora." "I." But her words died in her throat as hundreds of lenses turned on her. On the journalists' screens, her face aligned perfectly with the viral video. There was no escape. Aurora stepped out of the aircraft. The crowd waited, silent for a breathless moment, as though the entire world was holding its breath. Then she raised one hand, gently. A single gesture, but the crowd fell silent. Her voice rang out, low and steady, every word carrying weight. "Last night, in business class, I was served bread and water. I was not hungry. I was dismissed. And that is not just personal humiliation. It is a reminder that, in their eyes, I did not belong where I had paid to sit." The crowd erupted. Cameras flashed wildly. Microphones shook. Aurora paused for half a beat, then continued. "Kane Global Freight currently holds Meridian Skies' largest transport contracts. After tonight, those contracts will be under review." The words fell like an iron hammer. Reporters screamed questions. Meridian Skies' stock plunged another 8% in just 10 minutes of live broadcast. Morgan stood behind her, legs trembling. She wanted to shout, to defend herself, but her throat locked. Before the world, Aurora had just revealed her true identity. The woman she had deemed unworthy of a proper first-class meal was the very one holding the fate of the airline in her hands. Trent tried to slip through a side exit, but a journalist caught him. "This is the man who filmed Aurora as a joke." The press swarmed him instantly, making him the second symbol of shame. Aurora did not look back. She walked down the hallway, bathed in light, her heels striking the floor with reverberating certainty. To the public, she was no longer just a passenger. She was the judge. Outside the international terminal, headlines streamed across LED screens. Fortune 500 CEO humiliated on flight. Airline faces collapse. One image showed Aurora with her tray of bread and water, another of her raising her hand to speak. The symbol of humiliation had transformed into the symbol of power. Aurora drew in a deep breath. It was not the stale scent of cheap food in the cabin, but the air of freedom, of justice. She knew this was only the beginning. The morning light in New York glared against the glass towers, but inside the headquarters of Meridian Skies, no one felt its warmth. The main boardroom was dark, lit only by screens glowing red with losses. The company's stock was plunging like a train off a cliff, 25% in a single morning. CEO Damon Ricks clawed at his hair, his eyes bloodshot. He roared into the phone, "Do something, anything. Buy back shares, spin the story, push fake coverage. I don't care. Don't let her destroy us." But on the other end came only the trembling voice of his communications chief. "Sir, no one is listening to us anymore. Every outlet is following Aurora Kane. And Synapse Biosystems has just officially withdrawn its contract." The room froze. Another executive spoke, his voice hollow. "That was worth $2.4 billion. We've lost everything." Meanwhile, in London, headlines blazed. Aurora Kane, from humiliated passenger to the woman who shook aviation. A photo of her, seated upright before a tray of bread and water, was placed alongside the image of her walking off the plane, hand raised amid a forest of cameras. The contrast was too powerful, turning her into a global icon overnight. In Paris, protests erupted outside Charles de Gaulle Airport. Hundreds held banners, "We belong in first class too, and bread and water is over." In Tokyo, the Minister of Transport announced a sweeping investigation of all international carriers. No one pays for first class to be treated like economy. Dignity is the highest safety standard. Back at the hotel where Aurora was staying, her phone rang constantly. Calls from CEOs, politicians, reporters. But Aurora was selective. She answered one call from Anika Sharma, CEO of Synapse. "Aurora, we stand with you. Meridian Skies may have lost the contract, but Kane Global Freight has not. We will work directly with their competitor. With your approval, they will collapse completely." Aurora closed her eyes for a moment, her hand brushing the rim of her water glass. Her reply was calm, but it rang like a bell. "Begin. Let them understand that bread and water is not just a meal. It is a verdict." In the New York boardroom, a pale-faced aide rushed in, breathless. "Sir, Kane Global Freight has just signed a preliminary agreement with Astra Air Cargo, our direct competitor. Synapse and 2 other conglomerates have followed. We have been completely abandoned." Damon Ricks slammed his fist onto the table, his voice cracked and raw. "No, she cannot do this. She's just a woman, just a passenger." But in the eyes of his executives, no one believed him anymore. Aurora was no longer just a passenger. She was the epicenter of the quake. Live on television, US. Senators grilled the CEO of Meridian Skies. "Do you realize that in one night, a single discriminatory meal wiped billions off your company's value and put tens of thousands of jobs at risk? Are you even fit to lead?" Ricks hung his head, sweat dripping, unable to answer. Across the ocean, Aurora Kane sat calmly in her hotel suite, looking down at the protesters filling the street. Their chant thundered up, "Dignity is not optional." Inside, she felt no gloating, only conviction. Justice, when delivered at the right moment, did not teach lessons to one person. It bent entire industries. She whispered to herself, "They thought they could humiliate me with bread and water, but it is they who now taste the ashes of collapse." Aurora set her phone aside. On its screen glowed the headline, "Meridian Skies, Collapse Imminent." The morning light in London was thickened by the wail of press sirens, the constant snap of cameras, and the chants of the crowd gathered outside the hotel. The main entrance was blocked by dozens of reporters, their microphones raised like a forest of spears waiting. A revolving door opened slowly. Aurora Kane stepped out, dressed in a simple black suit that hugged her frame. No glittering jewelry, save for the familiar Cartier watch on her wrist. Flashbulbs erupted. The crowd seemed to stop breathing. Aurora raised her hand, palm open, a gentle gesture that silenced the chaos at once. Her voice rang out, deep and clear, each word carving into the air. Last night, I paid thousands of dollars to sit in business class, and all I was served was a piece of bread and a glass of water. That was not a mistake. That was a judgment, a way of saying I did not belong here. The crowd roared, then hushed again as Aurora continued. But this is not just my story. This is the story of millions of passengers who have stayed silent when dismissed, who have been treated as outsiders in spaces they paid to be part of. Last night, I chose silence. But that silence was not weakness. It was a weapon. A reporter shouted, "You have officially frozen a $2.4 billion contract with Meridian Skies. Is this a message to the entire industry?" Aurora paused, her gaze sweeping across the sea of cameras, then answered with a voice like steel. "Yes, and the message is very simple. Dignity is not a privilege. Dignity is a condition of survival. Any airline that forgets that will destroy itself." Cheers exploded. The hashtag, #DignityNotOptional, surged worldwide within minutes of the live broadcast. In New York, CEO Damon Ricks collapsed into his chair as Aurora's words played endlessly on the giant screens. Executives whispered, "We have lost everything. There is nothing left to save." Ricks buried his face in his hands. A single piece of bread had crushed his entire career. Aurora drew a deep breath and went on, her voice slow but heavy as stone. Kane Global Freight will not only review its contract with Meridian Skies, we will establish new principles. Any airline that wishes to partner must commit to transparency, to comprehensive training, to seeing passengers as human beings before customers. If not, we walk immediately. Another reporter shouted, "Do you think you are being too harsh? Is there room for forgiveness?" Aurora lifted her eyes, the cold light gleaming under the flashbulbs. "I believe in forgiveness when it is a mistake of the unconscious. But what happened on flight MS-217 was not unconscious. It was contempt. It was culture. And culture only changes when someone forces it to change." Her words struck like lightning. No one could respond. Across the world, reactions surged like a flood. In Washington, a senator declared, "She is right. This is not just an incident. This is the death knell of an industry that must reform." In Tokyo, the Minister of Transport pledged, "From today, Japan will require regular reports on passenger experience to ensure fairness." In Paris, thousands of protesters turned Aurora's words into chants. "Dignity is not a privilege." Aurora closed her speech with a voice low and resonant. "They thought they could humiliate me with bread and water. But today, I tell them this, that contempt has humiliated them before the entire world. And from this moment on, any airline that wants to survive must choose change or collapse. She set down the microphone, offering no more. The crowd erupted in thunderous cheers. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing. Online, the clip of Aurora stepping down from the podium, walking straight, backed with unbowed posture, became the most viral video of the year. That evening, in her hotel room, Aurora stood before the window, gazing down at the glowing city of London. The glass of water in her hand reflected the lights. Her phone vibrated non-stop, but she ignored it. She knew the storm she had unleashed was now beyond her control. It had become a movement. Aurora whispered softly, as if speaking to her mother long ago. I did not shout. I only stood firm. And the whole world was forced to listen. Outside, the night sky was still. But on the ground, the airline industry trembled before an earthquake unlike any it had ever faced. In a world where a first-class ticket can be bought with money, but dignity can never be sold cheap. The story of Aurora Kane reminds us of a simple truth. Sometimes justice does not come from shouting. It comes from unyielding silence, from a steady gaze, from the courage to stand tall when the whole room wants you to sit down. A piece of bread, a glass of water, an act that seemed small but became the spark that ignited the fire of change. Aurora proved that when power meets contempt, it is the one who shows contempt who must bow their head. And for every viewer watching this story, ask yourself, have you ever been dismissed, pushed aside, simply because others thought you did not belong? If so, remember Aurora Kane. Remember that justice does not need to be loud to become fire. If you believe that dignity is not a privilege but a birthright for all of us, hit like, share, and subscribe to spread this message. And leave a comment with the phrase, "Dignity first," to let the world know that you too stand on the side of justice.